Testing 1, 2, 3.
On behalf of Mayor Pro Tem Clark, who is not here at this time, and my fellow commissioners, Manager Madrid, Renee Canton, our city clerk, I would like to welcome you all to our business meeting of Wednesday, July 24th, 2019. It is now 9 a.m. I will call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Here.
Honorable Kathy Clark is absent. Honorable Ralph Hischler.
Present.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Here.
Honorable George Cicchetti.
Here.
Madam Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is silent meditation. Before I ask you to join me in 15 seconds of silent meditation, it is with great sadness to hear of the passing of Roswell firefighter Jeff Strobel, who passed away in a Lubbock hospital on the 21st of July after a battle to recover from injuries sustained in an explosion on June 5th, 2019. I would ask that in our silent meditation we keep the Strobel family and his friends, as well as his Roswell Fire Department family, in your thoughts and in your prayers. Please join me in 15 seconds of silent meditation. Our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Hischler, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item 4, the approval of the agenda. But before I get a motion to approve the agenda, if my fellow commissioners would allow, I would like to give a brief presentation this morning to a young man. He's not here yet? He's coming? All right. Oh, he's what? Golfing. Okay. All right. So as soon as he gets here, I will give him the presentation. So do I have a motion to approve the agenda as submitted for July 24th, 2019?
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the agenda with the addition of your presentation.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda with the addition of the presentation as soon as the young gentleman gets here. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. We'll just move on then to the next item on the agenda, which is the consent calendar. I have the consent calendar consists of 7 items. The first being item C1, City Commission Special Workshop Minutes of May 29th, 2019. This was our retreat held in Kingston at the Kingston Lodge. C2, City Commission Regular Minutes, July 10th, 2019. C3, acknowledge the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board minutes for March 28, 2019. C4, acknowledge the Public Utility Advisory Board minutes for July 17, 2019. C5, acknowledge the Golf Course Advisory Board minutes for April 3rd special, May 1st regular, June 5th regular, and July 8th 2019 special meeting. C6, accept the subrecipient fourth quarter reports, and C7, accept the Lodgers Tax fourth quarter reports. Is there anything on this list that needs to be taken off and listened to separately, or do we feel that we can approve them all at one time?
Mayor White, I'd like to make one slight correction. On item 4, you read to the record July 17th instead of June 17th.
Oh, excuse me, June 17th.
Correction, then I'm fine
Yes.
with the rest of it.
That was the Public Utility Advisory Board minutes for June 17th, 2019. Excuse it. Thank you.
With that, I move that we approve the consent calendar as written with that exception.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar as noted. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now, we will now go back to our presentation. Can I ask Mr. Samuel Paul Harris to step forward? Before I give him this award, this is a mayor's commendation. I would like to explain the situation. Last Thursday afternoon, I was on my way back from Albuquerque. I had just dropped my aunt off at her house on Foch Street. I was coming up 3rd Street. I see this 4x4 in front of me pulling off from 4th onto Foch and then up 3rd, and I followed them, and I thought, what is this person doing? You know, so I was right behind them. So we get to 3rd Street, right past the entrance for the municipal court, and the 4x4 kind of veered to the left, and I thought, whoa, there's something in the road. She's going to stop and pick it up, or they're going to stop and pick it up. Well, as I drove by, there's this little person laying in the road. And what had happened is either this little person, a young lady, she had either fallen off her scooter or her skateboard, or she was having a seizure. We did not know what. I stopped. The little, come to find out, Samuel tried to stop several people that went by. Nobody would stop. Nobody would stop. This little girl's laying in the road. And so he jumps on his bicycle. He was riding his bicycle in the area, saw the little girl. He spoke to her. She did not respond. Her eyes were open, but she did not respond. So the next thing he thought of was to jump on his bicycle, run back home to his grandmother's house, which was probably 2 blocks away, and got his grandma. So I would like to give today, as the mayor's commendation, presented to Samuel Paul Harris, with great pride, appreciation, and recognition, of the incredible, selfless act and quick action which saved the life of a young lady on July 18, 2019. We commend you and want to make sure you know your heroic efforts and how much you care for your fellow citizens do not go unnoticed. Signed by myself.
With the official one that we got Christmas already.
It's not too often that you know, people like this, especially the young people, will do something like that. And they parked in a place to keep other cars from coming and running over her. You know, it took a little while. We did call 911. Couple of officers came. The ambulance came. They did pick her up. To my understanding, the little girl is doing much better, and she was having a seizure. You know, we don't know how long she had been there. We don't know how many people passed by her. But thank you, Samuel, and continue to keep doing this good job. All right. Now on to our next item on the agenda, which is item D, public hearing. The one public hearing that we have this morning is a public hearing, final adoption of ordinance number 705, refunding of PPRF 2246, and a new money for infrastructure projects, including the loan agreement, intercept agreement, and closing documents. City Manager Madrid.
Mayor, Commissioners, I don't think that we require a public hearing today. That's been held. We are asking for final adoption of the ordinance. This is for the refinancing of some old money and some new money from the Mexico Finance Authority. The term of this, the loan of the new money will be from May of 2020 to May of 2029. The use of This money has not been set in stone. As projects become a priority, they will come to you for your approval. This was only to establish that kind of a line of credit that we have available to fund some of the projects that we can't fund externally. With that, I ask your approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions, comments, concerns?
I didn't hear all, Mr. Perdue, you said we didn't need a public hearing? I didn't.
He said we
We
did
had-
not.
We had it.
We had the public
This is
hearing
for,
already.
Final approval, we already have the public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah, it was last week.
Well, did we advertise that we were going to have a public hearing, or I don't know, how
No, we didn't advertise a public hearing, did we?
So
Or we did?
I'll check the publication.
I thought that's what we had discussed at our meeting as a public hearing, and we had advertised for a public hearing.
And that's what I'm thinking, I think if we advertise it, I think we
for the
agendized it, we
final-
probably would maybe just go through it.
I sit corrected, Mayor.
Okay. Do we have anybody to sign yet?
I just put it right next to you, no, nobody signed in, and, yes, the firm, Sutton Bayer did publish it as a public hearing for this meeting.
Okay. So do we have any questions, comments, concerns from the commission?
One question here.
Question.
Manager Madrid, so if we approve this ordinance and you have projects that you want to fund with this money, then you'll come back to the board for that specific reason and permission, or? how will that
That's
work?
correct. Yes, that's my intent.
Okay, thank you.
This is just allowing us approving the line of credit in case we were to need it for any upcoming infrastructure projects, correct?
Yes.
You know, and what I always think is helpful, and, you know, I know here we are, we got like these thick packets, I know it's maybe difficult for the commission to go through all the documents, but what I always think is helpful is, if you look at the cover sheet, the agenda request form, you have 3 attachments. You have the ordinance number 705, and the second document is the loan agreement. And I think, if you take a look at the loan agreement, you'll see it's 24 pages. To attach the loan agreement is like a 2-page exhibit, and that kind of explains the monetary terms. And I think I always point this out whenever we have one of these big packets. If you have any questions about really, you know, the actual mechanics of what the percentage rates are, or the actual amount of money that we're talking about, it's set forth in that term sheet. If you have any questions, you're welcome to look at it now. If you have any questions, we can discuss it, you know, before you approve it.
That's the hard copy.
Exhibit A, page A1 and A2.
Yes.
You have the one hard copy, Mr.
Is there any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, I will stand for a motion to approve ordinance number 705.
So did you have the public hearing? I didn't, maybe I missed it.
Oh, excuse me. Well, we don't have anybody that was signed up.
I would still ask the question.
Okay.
I would just open it and see if anybody has any comments. That's my recommendation.
Okay, all right. So the commissioners don't have any questions, so do we have any questions from the public? So I will now close the public hearing, and I will stand for a motion to approve ordinance number 705.
Mayor Whitehead, I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I make the motion for approval and final adoption of ordinance number 705 for refunding of PPRF-2246 and new money for infrastructure projects, including the loan agreement, intercept agreement, and closing documents, as presented by Manager Madrid.
Thank you, and do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the final adoption of ordinance number 705 as explained and noted by Commissioner Heschler. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all vote. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Senator Whitehead.
Aye.
Honorable Kathy Clark is absent. Honorable Ralph Eschler.
Aye.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Aye.
Honorable George Segedi.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item E, ordinance, resolutions, and zoning. Ordinance E1, discussion action, resolution number 07-1920, authorizing and approving submission of a completed application for financial assistance and project approval to the New Mexico Finance Authority, NMFA, for economic development feasibility studies. Manager Madrid.
Mayor and Commissioners, this is an application for funding, just like it says, to develop an economic development plan and strategy. The maximum amount that we can get under this grant is $50,000. I'm not sure whether Tracy would like to add anything to that. Tracy? And sometimes I think we need to get her a permanent seat.
Yeah.
That's what you call on her.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners. No, not too much to add. I just think that anything and any type of plan for economic development within our city is always a positive thing. So staff's approval is to approve the application. We, in the past, have gotten 100% grant funding from NMFA on a planning grant, and we're hoping for the same. It's not a guarantee.
Okay.
Thank you.
And this is just for the feasibility study at this time, right?
Yes, this one's for feasibility study.
Thank you.
Correct.
Do I have any questions from the commission? Attorney Rubin, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I do not, thank you.
I will stand for a motion to approve resolution number 07-1920, authorizing and approving submission of a completed application for financial assistance.
So moved, Mayor.
Do I have a second? I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 07-1920, authorizing and approving submission of a completed application for financial assistance and project approval to the New Mexico Finance Authority, NMFA, for economic development feasibility studies as noted by City Manager Madrid. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Aye.
Honorable Kathy Clark is absent. Honorable Ralph Heschler.
Aye.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Aye.
Honorable George Segedi.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item E2, discussion action, resolution number 08-1920, authorizing and approving submission of a completed application for financial assistance and project approval to the New Mexico Finance Authority, NMFA. City Manager Madrid.
Again, this is another application with a $50,000 limit. This particular application is to obtain funding to develop an asset management plan, which is mandatory from the state of New Mexico if you're going to apply for other types of funding. Recommend your approval.
Thank you. Do I have any questions, comments, or concerns from the commission? Attorney Rubin, do you have any questions or comments?
Well, I'll just, observe for both E1 and E2, there's really no downside to, the action we're taking. It's an application for grants, so I don't see any, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't go forward.
Thank you. I will stand for a motion to approve resolution 08-1920.
I'd like to move to approve resolution number 8-19-20, authorizing and approving submission of a completed application for financial assistance and project approval to the New Mexico Finance Authority, NMFA, as presented by City Manager Madrid.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 08-19/20 as noted by Commissioner Segedi. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Aye.
Honorable Kathy Clark is absent. Honorable Ralph Heschler.
Aye.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Aye.
Honorable George Segedi.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is item E3, discussion action, resolution number 09-1920, accepting the NMED Construction Programs Bureau, CPB, Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund offer and designating signatory authority for related documentation. City Manager Madrid.
Mayor and Commissioners, at this time, I would like to call Tracy. We also have a representative from Wilson Company. I'd like Tracy to give us a little bit of background because in regard to this offer, this was one that caught me kind of by surprise. I got an email from her on a Saturday afternoon in regard to this, so if she'd give us a little bit of background.
Morning, Mayor, Commissioners. So, as you know, our back station transports sewage from various areas within the city to the treatment plant. Our back station is over 20 years old, and there are a lot of components that are deteriorating, and our station is malfunctioning. We do not have a preliminary engineering report, which kind of limits the type of funding that we can apply for this type of a project. So we did reach out to the Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund and put in an application with them. I believe you guys have the offer in your packet. The projected project cost is $473,000. They are offering to fund all $473,000. $100,000 of that would be subsidy, so we have only a $373,000 loan offer. So this is a request to approve and accept that offer and authorize Mr. Madrid to proceed forward with any signatory authority on any documents that are required so we can get work done. Jesse was going to try and be here this morning to talk about some of the big concerns he has with his vac station. He has a little bit more knowledge, but I know he has spoke to Mr. Madrid about that. So if you have questions or if Mr. Madrid would like to chime in, I'll turn it over to him.
Thank you, Tracy. Manager Madrid.
To put it simply, Mayor, Commissioners, we have a great need in all areas of our infrastructure, and this is probably one of the biggest ones.
Thank you. Do I have any questions, comments, or concerns from the commission? Attorney Rubin, do you have any questions or comments?
No, it appears to be in our best interest to go forward with this project, so I don't see anything on the paperwork that's raising any red flags, so I have no problem.
Thank you. So I will stand for a motion to approve resolution number 09-1920.
Mayor, why don't I make that motion that Mr. Madrid appears to be pretty busy?
I'm not the only one, Commissioner. The whole team has been real busy.
All right, well, I'm proud to make this motion for the approval of resolution number 9/19-20, a resolution accepting the New Mexico Environmental Department Construction's Program Bureau Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund funding offer and designating signatory authority for related documentation for Manager Madrid to sign the documents necessary to make this thing happen.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
A second.
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution 09-1920 as noted by Commissioner Heschler. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Aye.
Honorable Kathy Clark is absent. Honorable Rolf Heschler.
Aye.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Aye.
Honorable George Segedi.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item F, new business. F1, discussion action, approval for authority to negotiate the award of RFP number 18-19-007 for automated meter infrastructure AMI project. City Manager Madrid.
Mayor, Commissioners, I'd like to give you a little bit of background on this whole process. The request for proposal was developed months ago. It was refined using Bo and other experts. We did have representation from the Public Utilities Advisory Board, and when we thought the RFP was ready, by ready I mean giving us the flexibility and options that we wanted included in the RFP. We didn't want to be painted into a corner. We didn't want to be committing to something that didn't have any flexibility at all. We didn't want it to be dependent solely upon price. So the RFP was released. I think we got responses from 7 or 8 entities. The committee met and ranked and rated those proposals. We narrowed it down to 3. I'm not going to name any of them yet. We invited the final 3 to interviews. We submitted questions to them that we wanted them to be able to answer at those interviews, such as time frame for conversion, adaptability with our current accounting system and billing, their method for implementation, our history and performance, references of other communities. We pretty much grilled them really good, and we wanted to make sure that they had the capability, the experience, and the expertise that we need. From that, I think the committee as a whole, we're comfortable actually with 2 of the 3. I think 1 of the 3 has pretty much been eliminated. We are comfortable with 2 of them. The reason that I'm asking you for approval to negotiate is in case one doesn't work out. I didn't want to ask you to approve a specific firm and then not have the ability to talk to the other one if negotiations fall through. So, within the original parameters of the RFP, I'm asking for your authority to negotiate with our primary one, and if our primary one doesn't work out, to go to the next one. Naturally, after these negotiations would take place, we would bring the final document back to you for your approval. I just didn't want to paint us into a corner where we're committed to one entity, and that takes away all of our bargaining power. So what I'm asking for you today, from you today, is the ability to negotiate under the state procurement code with 1 or 2 of the entities to bring you a final draft of an agreement for your approval. That's the process that we do.
Thank you, Manager. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns from the Commission?
Manager Madrid, what would you be negotiating? Have you settled on the price, or?
No, we haven't settled on the price. That one of the questions was, is this your best and final offer? And one of them even said, yes, it is, and then emailed us a few days later, well, let me think about that again. So price is one thing. Things that involve contingencies, such as outdated meters, schedule changes, the use of city staff for certain things. Anything involving, we're also discussing trial period, where we do an implementation of some city meters and try going through a couple of billing cycles for those ones alone. Things like that that we have discussed in abstract that we want to make part of the agreement. Those are the kinds of things that, while we've discussed them in concept, we haven't put in the agreement itself.
Any other questions?
Did you say the PUAB was or was not represented on the committee?
It's represented by one of the members,
Okay, it was, okay.
and he's been participating since the development of the RFP.
Okay. And was this presented at the last PUAB meeting, or since it's a negotiation, did you?
No, it hasn't been taken to the committee for their approval.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments, concerns? Attorney Rubin, do you have questions, comments?
No, in fact, City Manager Madrid and I talked about the procedure he's already outlined. I think it's a good way to proceed. Final document would come back to you anyway for final approval, so I think it's a win-win situation to go forward in this direction.
Thank you. I will stand for a motion to approve the authority to negotiate.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion for approval of authority to negotiate the award of RFP number 18-19-007 for automated meter infrastructure AMI project as presented by City Manager Madrid.
And do I have a second? I have a motion and a second to approve the authority to negotiate as noted by Commissioner Zaghetti. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Before we continue, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
I just thought of I should have asked that kind of question. Yes, one of the considerations in this meter infrastructure is, will it be adaptable to using the same concept for reading water meters there? The answer is yes, it will.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item F2, discussion action request approval for final design concept for Ralph Edwards Park Master Plan. City Manager Madrid.
This time, Mayor, Commissioners, I'd like to call OJ up to give us a little bit of background and regarding the evolution of this design and the involvement of the Parks Committee.
Thank you.
Morning, Mayor. Morning, Commissioners. Morning, Mr. Madrid. So what started off with a new sprinkler system turned into this. We decided to get real methodical with our concept with Ralph Edwards Park. And before we go in and start installing a new sprinkler system, things that we need to really consider is how to maximize our sprinkler system out there. One of the ways to do that is to design the sprinkler system around our facilities. In other words, we can't put in a sprinkler system if we're going to make any future changes to the park, because the sprinkler system will be watering sidewalks, it'll be watering shade shelters, and et cetera. So you'll see that, and I just want to cover this real quick, an example of that is the way the sidewalk is set up now, and you can, wrong one. Right there, okay. So the sidewalk, the way it's set up now, you'll see how it's triangular in shape. It's real hard to design a sprinkler system that's not going to water that sidewalk. So what we're trying to do here is square it up and design zones for our sprinkler system here. And so this would be a zone, this would be a zone, this would be a zone, and this would be a zone. It's a lot easier to water squares than it is triangles. One of the issues we have now as well is this sidewalk here that we currently have, it's in a low spot, and there's a sprinkler hitting there right now that every time we water, it ponds up there and people can't use the sidewalk. So those are some things that we've taken into consideration with this design concept. And I'd like to read some of the goals that we started off with real quick. One was to set aside the most eastern edge of the park for parking for both general use and for the farmers market. So if we're going to continue to have the farmers market here, right here is where we would like to have the farmers market for parking. We would install shade shelters there. The farmers market, they could back up here and they can use this sidewalk here. Another thing we would do is install a fence or bollards and cables along the sidewalk here, just to deter from people from driving onto the park. So one of the other goals was to protect the grassy area of the park from vehicular traffic through the use of fences, bollards, and other means. So to provide the park with a stronger connection to the Rio Grande and plan for a river trail. So you'll see right here on the design, there is a river trail, planning for a river trail here along the riverside. To potentially move the horseshoe pits away from the hillside on Riverside Drive to a less sloped location that would allow better irrigation and access to the park. So currently our horseshoe pits are up here. It's one of those areas that doesn't really have a definition. Are we growing grass there, or do we have horseshoe pits there? It's one of those things. I believe the horseshoe pits were added after the sprinkler system, and so it's kind of in between, like what are we doing with this area of the park? So you'll see down here on the concept that we did move horseshoe pits over here, and the horseshoe pits get used during Fiesta, and they get used 2 or 3 times throughout the year. You don't really see a whole lot of people out there playing horseshoes. Now, if we put a new facility over here, that might up the interest, and we might get more people playing horseshoes. So, to lessen the slope on the hillsides on South Cedar Street and East Riverside Drive to make the grass easier to maintain and provide better access to the park. So what I'm talking about here is along Cedar Street and along Riverside right here, to lessen the slopes there, so people can have easy access to the park. We do live in a community where we do have a lot of elderly, and trying to walk down into the park from those areas can be dangerous. Also, you'll see parallel parking here, and we would add parallel parking here, and then add a sidewalk around the entire park here. We did look into potentially putting some diagonal parking here, And I know Mr. Madrid and Tracy have a little more information on to why this is more feasible. I know cost is one reason. I know that if we start adding parking, diagonal parking here on the other side, I think we have to do some work to the other side of the street as well. And then to bring that slope up high enough to allow parallel parking, it just wouldn't be cost effective. So to generally plan our approach to a new, more modern irrigation system for the park. And so that's one of the main goals, that was the main goal that got us to this point. And then to move and upgrade the playground equipment to current playground equipment standards and to try to protect the city from any liabilities. And so you'll see that the playground equipment, currently our playground equipment is right in here somewhere. We would move it up here closer to the street. We would make room here for the horseshoe pits. And then we would keep the basketball court, and we would also keep the volleyball courts here. And this fence right here, I know is an eyesore, and we will do something with that fence right there as well. I could go into every little detail on here. I'm just going to hit the highlights, and then I'm going to turn it over to George Radnovich. He's our landscape architect of Site Southwest. If you have questions, and I believe he's got a little presentation as well. He's got it on a thumb drive, if that's okay. He can load it up real quick. But another highlight right here is our skate park. And I'll let George talk about this a little more. He's got a little more information on it. But the design of a new concrete skate park. The skate park we have out there now with the metal structures, I've seen kids run up on it in the middle of the day when it's hot, and I've watched them go crying to mommy. So it's something that probably needs to be addressed one way or the other. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to George Radnovich, Site Southwest. He's our landscape architect. So.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners. I may have hit something that made a buzz, I'm sorry. Ralph Edwards Park is your plaza, like Old Town Plaza in Santa Fe. It's like the plaza in, in Albuquerque. It's like the plaza in Santa Fe or the new plaza in Las Cruces. It's your signature park. And you have fiestas there. And there were many things, or there are many things at the park that need updating. A big one, which OJ mentioned, is the irrigation. As you may or may not know, there is no valving that zones the irrigation in the park. It is one large valve off the 6-inch line on Riverside Drive that runs the entire park at one time, and that doesn't meet any current standards for irrigation design. It's inefficient water-wise, and it isn't controlled by a computer controller, which is what we would do for parks today. So it's the PowerPoint presentation actually that we want to look at. There you go. Should be a PowerPoint. There it is. Yeah. Great. And if you could hit the, all right. So, thank you. So I can move that forward with this? Okay, thank you. So I'll just go into a little bit more detail than what OJ talked about in his description, and good description of the whole park, OJ. Right now, the park has 4-foot sidewalks. It has a very small area and a very small gazebo for any kind of event, especially something like the fiestas. Also right now, there are some issues with the park. One OJ mentioned is the sloped area along Cedar and Riverside right here. Another is that every time it rains, this restroom gets inundated with water and becomes unusable. A third is that the parking lot is really not set up for the maximum efficiency and the maximum number of parking spaces. And so what we did is we made it a very efficiently designed parking lot. This part of the lot would be asphalt for everyday use. There'd be a gate right here. And this part of the lot would be base course. and it could be used or not used depending on the event. One event that we designed it for, and by the way, we designed the Main Street down in Las Cruces for their farmers market. As you may remember, at one point in time, it was kind of transient row, and it was a pedestrian mall that just didn't make any sense. We turned it back into a Main Street. When we did that, we designed it for their farmers market, and so we did a similar thing right here. This row right there is set up for pickup trucks and for what farmers markets use. So they could literally drive down into this area and then back up. We made this walkway wider than any of the other walkways. It's 10 feet wide. And the reason for that is that during the farmers market, people can just walk from stall to stall and buy their goods. And so it becomes a kind of a, I don't know if promenade's the word, but it becomes a kind of a walkway to help service all those farmers. And we designed that with enough space for all of the people that come to the farmers market to sell their goods right now. The other thing that this does is it provides parking to access what could become a really great trail for the city of Truth or Consequences. And I know that the Riverside Inn has a kind of a trail in front of their facility, and this could easily connect into it right here at the end of Cedar here. But we designed a trail that would just have some native landscaping along it, some shade with cottonwood trees and such, and then a soft surface trail that would allow people to really see the river. When OJ took me to the park the first time I ever saw it, actually it's not the first time, I come to Truth or Consequences quite a bit for the hot springs with my wife, but you couldn't really tell that the river was there. You know, it's kind of hidden because of the grading on the park. And so with the parking lot here, we would suggest grading this slightly so that you actually are able to see the river from the park and see that that park is on the river and see the trail. The other thing we did is when we talked to Mr. Madrid and OJ about how the river's used, there used to be a drop-off or a pull-out for rafts and boats and kayaks and that kind of thing along the river right down here at the corner on Cedar. Well, we made it more accessible, and we are showing one right here off the parking lot. These could actually be spaces when it's not used for that, but there's a pull-out or a put-in for rafting and other kind of river uses right there. So we made it more efficient. The playground area, we really tried to keep this part of the park all for soft surface turf and for the fiestas and just a kind of traditional park use, and then this part of the park for sports and other kinds of activities related to that. So as OJ mentioned, volleyball, horseshoes, a playground that meets ADA. By the way, your playground does not meet current ADA standards. And the playground also is not shaded, so that triangular shaped illustration is trying to show a shade device over the playground. And then of course you have your basketball courts, which we're not suggesting change in any way. The other thing I wanted to mention is the skate park. The skate park right now is a skate park that works, but as OJ said, because of the metal on those ramps, it's really potentially dangerous for kids that use it, because in the heat of summer, that metal really gets hot. And so what we're suggesting is more of a concrete skate park, like the ones you see in the bigger cities, smaller albeit, but like that, so that it doesn't have that kind of dangerous or detrimental anyway kind of feel and touch for kids that might use it. The last thing I wanted to mention is, and I won't go too much longer, there are some obstructions in the grass that also inhibit sprinkler systems. That right now there's a concrete pad here, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense really. There might have been some structure on it at some point in time, but all it does now is it creates an irrigation problem. So we're suggesting be taken out so that the irrigation becomes more efficient. So what we're suggesting the advantages to this master plan is a better connection to the Rio Grande and the beginnings of a trail system that the whole city could use all the way along from the spas up and upstream and downstream from the park. More parking for events. I didn't mention, as OJ did, the parallel parking, but it really adds to your parking that you have now. A more easily irrigated and a better irrigation zoned system. There would probably be 6 irrigation zones on the park in the end, maybe as much as 8. And then a better design for the farmers market. It would meet ADA. That's a picture of so you may remember when it was like this. Well, actually, it is like this now, but this is Las Cruces Farmers Market. It's their main street, and they just close off each end of the main street and use it for their farmers market. The shade structures we designed actually have water in them and electricity in them, so the farmers, when they come in, can spray off their goods periodically and even have electricity if they need it. The other advantages are the new gazebo, which would be bigger. Obviously, the new, more modern skate park. I've just shown one skate park right here, and we've designed a number of skate parks around the state. The new playground and shade structure, the remedy for that drainage issue at the restroom, and then that new boat ramp for events that might happen in the future or that even happen now. Oh, that's it. I wanted to also say that I know that the city has a $50,000 grant for improving the irrigation system. I believe that grant could be used for irrigation for almost anything, not just Ralph Edwards Park. Tracy might correct me on that one. Specifically for Ralph Edwards Park. I wanted to also tell you that the cost of irrigation is not inexpensive these days, and because there's absolutely no control on the irrigation system right now, a control system would be very helpful for OJ and his crews, because he wouldn't have to be going out there at 3 in the morning to turn on the...
We have it on a timer now, but
Okay.
it isn't on a timer.
The other thing I wanted to mention is $50,000 may sound like quite a bit of money, but really all that $50,000 would probably get, and we haven't started design on the irrigation system at all, is one of these quarters, and probably a better valving system, better cross-connection control, which is a vacuum breaker that is by law required on a park. And in order to do one of these quarters, say we chose that one as an example, you can see through the master plan right here and right there. Right now there's a sidewalk there, and they're small sidewalks. They are what OJ mentioned. They break up the park. They break up the way it's organized. They would be removed, and we might be able to do one section. So with a $50,000 amount, we wouldn't be able to do the whole park. It would have to be a portion of the park. And in order to do that, as OJ mentioned, we should set the sidewalks where they would be in the end, so that we're not redoing the irrigation system at some point in the future. OJ, did I miss anything? I think I got everything there. So with that, we stand for questions.
A couple things that I didn't mention. I did share this design with my rec board meeting with the Recreation Advisory Board on numerous times. I do have their support on this. I do understand that it's really ambitious. I get that. But what this plan is designed to do for us, more or less, is and it's a concept as of right now. We will, and what we're after today is for the final approval of the concept. And once we get that, we can go into more detail as far as plans and cost estimates and things of that nature. But what this plan does, enable us to do is it gives us a sense of direction for future goals for the park on where we're going to head. I'm actually going to take this design and I'm going to put it in a frame. I'm going to hang it up at my office, and it'll give us a sense of direction. And then the master plan developed to apply for fundraising and grants. We understand that we're not going to be able to just fork over all the money it's going to take to do this, but it will give us a sense of direction. And when we apply for grants, we'll have, well, this is what we want. We'll have it on paper, and it'll give us a better opportunity to achieve those grants. So, if you guys have any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions, comments, concerns?
I really liked it. I'm impressed. I mean, it does address a lot of the issues that we have up there. And as you said, having a final picture of what you want it to look like when you're working this, incrementally, like we're going to have to do, at least you're always working toward that, a set goal, and not changing ideas in the middle and doing something that turns out to be incompatible with something else. So, yeah, I really like that.
Commissioner Heschler?
Yeah, several questions. If I may, thank you. Just a comment and a question. The $50,000 that we already have been awarded for a grant, can that be used maybe for a valve control station or a location where we would get the process started so we could use that money? Or do we have to use it in a corner of the park somewhere? How would you suggest?
Mayor, Commissioner, what I would suggest, and we haven't done an estimate of how far that would go yet, but where I would start is to put a computer controller on the park that would then be, and we're thinking a Rainbird XP, and the reason for that is a Rainbird XP can talk to other controllers, and that would be the start of having a control system that OJ could use for multiple parks around the city. And so it would be the start of connecting all the parks together so that at some point in time, he could use that to, from his phone, run the irrigation system, turn it off, whatever he needs to do remotely. I would also suggest that we do the valving for all of the zones that would eventually be there. And we are contracted with the city to do a full design for the entire irrigation system for the park at this point in time. As I said, we wouldn't be able to do all of that, but if we put in all the valves, then we'd be set up to then, from those valves, take the main line and the laterals to the rest of those zones when they need to be done. It would all be set up. And then to do the one, maybe two zones that we could do for the first phase of design. Did that answer your question, Commissioner?
Yeah, I think so. I just don't want that $50,000 to be returned or to go unused. It's got to be.
Manager Madrid.
The intent is to make $50,000 a part of our initial phase, not the entire initial phase. So we will, before we take that initial step, at least for the irrigation, we want to make sure that we have enough to complete it all. We don't want to do half the park irrigation and half the park later. If we're going to phase it, they have to be major phases. And we are working towards that. We do have a lot more than $50,000 available. Okay.
Yeah, and one other thing, Commissioner and Mr. Madrid, Mayor. As I said earlier, and as OJ said, each of these areas, these sidewalks aren't perfectly aligned with the old sidewalks. They're slightly off. So as an example, if we took one of the easier quadrants, say this one, as Mr. Madrid said, we would sure want to at least build this sidewalk, this one, and that part of this one, or at least put edges there so that the irrigation system is where it's going to be in the end, not adjusted later to, and designed to what we have now, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Another question is that this is Ralph Edwards Park. How do we protect the identity of Ralph Edwards in this situation? How do we further the Ralph Edwards name? And is that going to be the intent? And how do we do that?
That's a tough question, Commissioner Mayor.
If we're gonna name it that, we're gonna have to signify it in some way.
Well, one thing I would suggest is that this park is laid out, even now, more or less like a traditional park. Most traditional parks have a gazebo in the middle, a little plaza in the middle, 4 quadrants. You see it all over the United States. You see it in Santa Fe. You see it in California, everywhere. So the park is a traditional park, and it was built quite some time ago. I believe this was your first park. Is that correct? I believe that's right. So it is your signature park to begin with. In order to do something like that, I think Ralph Edwards ought to be memorialized somewhere in the park, and maybe that's a new gazebo that has his name on it. Maybe it becomes the Ralph Edwards Memorial gazebo or stage or event center. Maybe there are, and I'm just coming up with this off the top of my head, so pardon me. Maybe there's signage along this corner or along this corner where right now cars that come down Cedar will see it, or cars that enter the park on Riverside will see it, but maybe there's signage up in this corner or down here, maybe even over on this side, that identifies the park as Ralph Edwards Park and has a little story about why Ralph Edwards is so important to Truth or Consequences as a city and what he did for the city and how he kind of put the city on the map in a way. And you did too by voting to change the name of the city. So I think signage and then maybe some kind of memorial or naming that stage, the Ralph Edwards Memorial Stage or something like that would be a good way to honor that tradition and honor the start to what really became a signature project or signature park for the city of Truth or Consequences. I hope I answered that question.
You tapped that as well.
Thank you, Commissioner.
And I apologize for that question, but I think it is important to memorialize his legacy in some way, because we do have the park named after him, so that was important. And I guess my final question is this, and I really love the idea of the centralized watering system, or the ability to modernize it with a phone. And so to help justify that, OJ, would you talk a little bit about what your current watering routine is and how you deal with it during the week and the weekends and all that, and how you accomplish those things?
Yes, Commissioner. So currently, I come in a few times a week, and I come in, I get up at 4 o'clock, I come in at 5, I go turn the valve on out at the cemetery. We have 2 sections out at the cemetery. I drive back across town, I turn the valve on at Family Park. I go and I turn on the bubblers at Rodeo Arena. I turn on the bubblers that we have around the ball fields. And then we're also got other tasks we're trying to complete as well. I have to go back and I have to flip a valve to the other section out at the cemetery. I drive back across town, flip our valve over at Family Park for the other section. In the meantime, I'm dealing with customers. We're dealing with projects. I'm also trying to run a minimal crew right now. So you can imagine sometimes I get pulled off or I get pulled, and there's a couple other bubblers in the area. 3rd and Date, there's one. 9th and Ash, we have a watering area. All the small parks currently we have on battery operated timers, which really saves us from running around a lot, but we do have to check those batteries often. So, you know, consisting of running around, flipping valves, trying to coordinate my crew, and also dealing with other issues that pop up, monuments, internments, things of that. Sometimes we get pulled off, and the water, we don't get a valve flipped over, so we don't get water, you know, on one section of the park, or something like that happens. So that pretty much consists of what we do to try to get water on everything currently. So.
That's a lot of work in just a few hours.
No, that's the other thing too, is we try to get the water turned off by 10 o'clock because of the water conservation. So if we don't get them turned on right away, then we lose that, you know, that time. And especially now in the middle of the summer, the water that's the most important thing. If we really want to get these parks to where we believe we can get them, it starts with the water. Has to be the water first, so.
Thank you. I do want to ask one question. Once we get started on this project, what is the time frame for completion?
Mayor, Commissioners, that depends on how far you want to go with each stage of design. Right now, all we were going to do is the irrigation design. Obviously, some of the irrigation design would need other elements designed as well. The park, I thought about that, and the park could be designed in phases. The first phase probably, if we were going to design the park, or excuse me, if we were going to reconstruct the park from a beginning stage and we were going to do it all at once, we would first do all the demolition. We would then grade it. Not that it needs much grading, but along that slope, we'd be needing to grade it. We'd then put in the irrigation system, and then basically the top dressing, the landscaping, any new trees. By the way, some of the trees need to come, and OJ knows this, need to come down right now. Some of them are dangerous because they're almost dead, and some are dead. Then we would put in the amenity, the skate park, the playgrounds, benches, trash receptacles, that kind of thing. If we were going to do, if a contractor were going to do that whole park all at the same time, I would say it would take probably the better part of a year. I would say 9 months to a year to construct. And with bidding and that kind of thing, it would probably take a full year for all of that. It's obviously the best way to go, but cost would obviously come into play there. But the state legislature probably will be having a pretty good year again in terms of money available this coming year, and there may be ways to take that a little further at that point. But did that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you. I just kind of wanted to know what a time frame was and what we were looking at.
If we were just to do the $50,000 work of the irrigation plan and then design and construction, I would say that would take 2 months, 3 months at the outside. And we're coming up on a good time to do that, Mayor, because a good time to do that would be during the off season. And so we're coming up to fall, and that would be the best time to start on that irrigation system, fall and winter.
Perfect. Thank you. Do I have any further questions, comments, or concerns? Manager Madrid.
Recommend your approval, Mayor.
So I stand for a motion.
Mayor Whitehead, I'd like to move to approve the final design concept for Ralph Edwards Park Master Plan as presented here.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second to approve the final design concept for Ralph Edwards Park Master Plan as presented. Is there any further questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, guys. Good job.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda this morning is item G1, or G, reports. G1, manager report.
Mayor, Commissioners, I have a very brief report today. This week I've been taking a class at Western New Mexico University on economic development, and it shows that we have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. We're losing population, we're losing jobs, we're losing businesses, and we need a definition and direction. We need to define who we are and what direction we want to go. And it's going to take an entire community. It's not something that the city commission or the city manager can do by themselves. We, of course, can initiate that process, but it's going to take an entire community to get behind this effort. And we have to be prepared for all contingencies. For example, if the spaceport is 100% successful for the next 20 years, or if it isn't, if the new mine comes in, or if it doesn't, I think we need to work on our identity. We do not want to be a metropolitan area like Philadelphia with industrial plants, things like that. How much of our community do we want to trade for prosperity? And I think probably not very much. I think we want to keep the kind of small town identity that we have with the quality of life that we have, but with a solid economic base. Until we decide that we want to be something new, we should try and make what we have better. That's going to be the avenue that I'm looking at in bringing new ideas or recommendations. We're trying to form groups to analyze and find out where we want to go and how to prepare for everything that may or may not be coming up. So I was going to go through some of the steps. The major ones are we have to do a needs assessment. We have to assess what our assets are, what defines our community, what our job base is, what potential we have to create new jobs. In creating one type of job, you can create other type of spin-off jobs just by the virtue of the income that's going to be coming in. There are processes like that that we have to define. We have to find out what all of those factors are. We don't operate in a vacuum. We're going to need to coordinate with the county and our regional neighbors, and then determine on where to focus, whether to recruit certain types of employers, whether to develop the businesses that we do have. It's going to be an order of priority. So I just wanted to plant that seed and start this conversation today, because I think it's one that we're going to have in the next year. That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Manager Madrid. Attorney Rubin, do you have a report?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Commissioner Baca?
I do not.
Commissioner Zagetti?
Just a quick note, it's a little early to say anything, but I've been working with Chief Aragon, and we're looking at the agreements we have for with the county and Elephant Butte for animal control and shelter services, and according to the contracts, we haven't been billing them for everything we should be billing them for. So we're looking at that. When we get that, the chief is going to revise the procedures for his staff to follow to make sure that all applicable charges are being added to the bill that we send to these entities. The one issue we have had is actually finding a copy of the final signed agreements. And I think we should have a copy of those at the clerk's office. I don't know what has happened with these things. I know the JPAs have to go up to the state for, I think, be registered at the state, not necessarily approved. And whether we got them back from the state, I don't, we're kind of trying to figure out what's happened with those. But hopefully when we get all of that data together, we're going to meet with the city manager and get that defined. The one thing I did is we had one full fiscal year of data, and I looked at the number of animals that were brought in from each jurisdiction and whether that matches the percentage of the costs that they're paying. And right now, it looks like the amounts that we have set up are fairly close to the actual demand that is being placed on us by the county and by Elephant View. And we figure the shelter agreements expire in 2022, and we can go back, look at the figures at that time. We have a good 3-year basis for it, and we can determine whether those amounts would have to be renegotiated or not. That's all I have then.
Thank you. Commissioner Heschler?
No report.
No report. And the only report that I have is, this last weekend was a big weekend for NASA. They celebrated their 50th anniversary. We look at what we've done, what the space industry has done, Spaceport America. I think they had a lot of great activities over the weekend. So, I mean, we've really come a long way in the space age. And congratulations again to them. I also would like to extend a big congratulations to Deputy Chief Michael Apodaca, who retired last week from the city PD. I know he spent many years with the City of Truth or Consequences, and he will be greatly missed. We appreciate all his years of service to the community, and please enjoy your retirement. And that's all I have. Thank you. The next item on our agenda this morning is item H, executive session. H1, real property, various properties pursuant to 10-15-1H8. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to go into executive session under H1. Madam Clerk, would you please call roll?
Honorable Sandra Whitehead.
Aye.
Honorable Kathy Clark is absent. Honorable Ralph Heschler.
Present.
Honorable Paul Baca.
Aye.
Honorable George Zaketi.
Aye.
Motion carries. Just a reminder that before everyone leaves, our next commission meeting is August 14th, 2019. Remember that there will be a town hall meeting at 6 o'clock here in the chambers with Manager Madrid for anyone that would like to give public comment or just come and visit with him. Please do so. He's here and available for you. Thank you. And thank you all for sitting and listening to us. Thank you.